Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike, and the Mike Irwin is back with us this week. You're back from vacation. How was your vacay?
I felt like I was still doing Ask Mike. I'll explain that later.
Oh, okay. We'll hear that story a little bit later, but it's good to have you back. Alyssa and I had so much fun last week.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, you heard? It was good?
Well, I read the comments.
Oh, nice. Okay. Hopefully all positive.
Good.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. But we're excited to have you back because this is your show, Ask Mike. So let's get right into answering your questions. Our first question is from S. Giles, who says, welcome back, Mike. You missed SEC Media Days. What did you think about the conference media picking Arkansas 5th in the West?
First of all, it probably makes Razorback fans mad. Might make the players mad. I don't know. If it motivates, that's fine. No one should ever be worried about what's picked at SEC Media Days.
No.
Because, and here's the issue. I went there about 16 years off and on over the years. I never voted in any of those polls because I didn't feel qualified. Because here's the thing.
You didn't vote in any of them?
None of them.
Wow.
Because you're going there, 95% of the credentialed media at Media Days cover one team. You know, I cover Tennessee, I cover Florida. So you go there, and what happens? You're there to cover your coach, your players, and by the time you go to those press conferences and then you got to start getting ready to go on the air, you don't have time to watch the other press conferences. So you're only vaguely aware of what's being said by the other teams. You certainly aren't aware of the other 13 teams, soon to be 15 teams.
Oh.
So how are you going to know? And that was my logic. I mean, come on, I don't know anything about Florida, not specific. So here's what happens. You get ready to vote, and these guys, they know about their team, and they may know about teams like Alabama and Georgia, but they don't know all the teams. So you're getting ready to vote, and you go, oh, Arkansas, yeah, they weren't very good last year. Okay, let's pick them 5th. You know, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
You revert back to what you knew last year. Well, it's not last year, it's this year. And there's changes with every team in the SEC, if you pay attention. We all know what's new about Arkansas, new defensive coordinator. You know,
but some of the media did not know that. For someone who was there at Media Days.
Of course they didn't know it, because they don't cover that team.
Yeah.
So this is why they get this wrong. Last year they picked A&M second, and they finished last in the West. It's easy to pick Alabama first. It's easy to pick Georgia first. Those are no-brainers. But what do you do after that? You get it wrong. That's what they do, because they just base everything on last year. So no one should get upset about them picking Arkansas 5th. They might finish 5th. They might finish 2nd. Might finish 3rd. And the other thing is, preseason predictions, everybody wants them, but they're annoying because there's so many things you can't take into consideration. Who's going to get hurt? Who's going to had a good season last year but it's not going to have a good season this year? Who didn't do squat last year but suddenly is going to come into their own this year? There's all these unknowns that will change things for every team for good or bad, and you can't know that in July.
No, you
So
can't.
the whole point of it is just fun. It gives people something to talk about, but it's a waste of time, and I'm a real practical guy, and I just go, this is all stupid, and I didn't vote, ever.
Well, a lot of people, so I did vote this year, and it was a long process. I mean, you have to go through a lot to know. And
so then if you did that, you took time away from what you should have been doing, which is covering Arkansas.
Exactly. I agree with you, Mike. I agree. But it was interesting to see the process to go through the whole voting process, because in years previous, I didn't vote like you. I also was like, well, I don't know enough about Ole Miss, or I don't know enough about, Tennessee
Especially
this year or
teams
whatever.
on the other side.
Especially teams on the other side. Like the 5 people that voted for Vanderbilt to win the
There's
East.
always been those guys. Those guys just did that as a joke.
I'm sure, because there's no way someone who actually went to Media Days would go, this is how I believe the West will play out.
Right.
Or even, I think somebody voted for them to win the whole thing.
They did. They got 5 votes.
To win the entire SEC.
I think so. Yeah, I think I read that. So it's just somebody being stupid.
Yeah, so you can't really base anything off of them. I mean,
so
right?
The bottom line to the question, who cares? It's stupid. It's an invalid poll.
And
you could poll a bunch of fans
And you might actually get better.
You might get better results.
Might get better results for sure. SEC Media Days is all about the media partying.
It's
That's
about
all it
your
is.
own team watching your coach and your players.
Exactly. Razor Alex 88 wants to know, who would you say are the winners and losers of SEC Media Days in terms of making their talking time worth the time? Of course, Sam is a big winner. Of course, I was honestly impressed with Zach Arnett from MSU as well, from Mississippi State.
Yeah, Sam's always going to do well at Media Days because he has kind of this kind of good blend of, he does some X's and O's, which I like, but he also does the kind of the funny stuff with this playlist, which Evan asked him about that.
Yeah.
And so you get some of that. You know, Lane Kiffin was really funny on Media Days.
Lane Kiffin was hilarious.
So I would say Pittman's always going to do well at Media Days. I've watched him there enough to know he's going to do well. And again, I call him Whittle Wayne Kiffin. Somebody asked me the other day, why do you call him Whittle Wayne Kiffin? He's not Whittle.
No.
I said, it's because when I was here covering Lou Holtz, his dad was the defensive coordinator, and he was Whittle Wayne Kiffin. He was a little kid running around.
He was little.
He was. He was a little
Makes
kid
sense.
running around. So that's why I call him Whittle Wayne Kiffin. I find him annoying at times, but at times I liked what he had to say about NIL.
Me too,
He stepped up to the plate and addressed it and made some good points, and more coaches need to do that. So I would say I liked him, I liked Pittman, and the rest of it is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I liked the best part from Lane Kiffin because Sam Pittman, from every other media member, when I was going around and talking to them, they were like, Sam Pittman is so funny. And I was like, yeah, he's great. He's a great personality. And they love the playlist. They love the Hot Springs Yacht Club playlist. But Lane Kiffin maybe took second with the second best answer of Media Days when he was talking to that reporter about, oh, you look like me? Well, who's your mom? Like that was, I mean, it had everybody dying, Mike. Yeah. It was great. So I think you're right on Whittle Wayne Kiffin. Whittle Wayne, did I do it right? Whittle Wayne Kiffin?
He did well this year.
He definitely did. Razorback says, from what I'm reading, the Razorbacks won't be in a bend, but don't break defense this year like we were under Odom. Is that correct?
Well, that's what we were told, and that's what happened in the spring. And then Sam Pittman had a really cool thing about that. I'll talk about it later, but he was explaining about the new aggressive defense. Yeah. So from everything we're told, there's going to be a different approach. They're going to attack. It's not going to be, oh, hold back, let's just don't give up the big play. They're going to take chances. And I think the fans will like it. Here's what I'm looking forward to, and you got to look past LSU, but I'm looking forward to Arkansas A&M because it's going to be Bobby Petrino, who knows a thing or two about beating the blitz, and it's going to be Travis Williams attacking his offense. And who's going to win that battle? It's a chess match.
The new guy and the experienced one.
Yeah,
I love that.
The young whippersnapper on defense.
Yeah, the young whippersnapper.
The old Petrino. So we'll see. I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that as well. But you have to think, we're going to see a lot. We talk about this all the time. We're going to see a lot more in fall camp, hopefully, because right now we can only talk about these things.
I don't know what you're going to see on fall camp, but you may hear things. Stuff may fall through the cracks. We don't see a lot.
I know. We see a little more than we do in spring, I feel like. We see a little bit more. But the thing I like, Mike, when you look at that defense, is how big these guys have gotten. That is a physical thing you can see.
They've got depth with their down linemen now, and they got a lot of depth in the secondary, and hopefully they won't have the injuries they had last year.
Exactly, and that physicality, you're seeing it with how big these guys like Landon Jackson gaining 40 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, that looks incredible. So hopefully everything we're seeing and hearing matches up on the field this season. Hot Dogger says, listening to Coach Pittman, he sounds like he's changing his plans on fourth downs. In the past, when it was fourth and short, he would punt instead of going for it. What do you think caused him to change his mind about fourth downs?
We were talking about this. I don't think so much it's a matter of whether he's now going to go for it more and punt less. I don't think that's what he was talking about. He was saying that he didn't feel like they prepared enough last year going into the season and even during the season for fourth down situations, and that's on both sides of the ball. And he said, we made some mistakes. So he said, in the spring, we did a lot of that. I assume they're going to do it more in August camp. The idea is to have a better success rate if you decide to go for it on fourth down, better play calling, and have a better success rate if you decide to stop, if you're trying to stop somebody on fourth down.
Exactly.
And you can't do that if you're not ever working on it. So that's what he said. We made a mistake. We didn't put enough emphasis on it.
Yeah, and I like what he also added there, that we saw he said a lot of other coaches go for it. And we didn't have the ability to stop them on fourth down.
Because they weren't prepared.
But they weren't prepared, and that is something that you see when you talk about physicality and that defense getting bigger and stronger. You know, with that new strength and conditioning coach, that all plays into those fourth down situations on either side of the ball. So I'm excited to see that as well. Marty Bird's Proxy asks, what position group do you see, Mike, as the strongest, and which may be the most suspect for the upcoming Razorback football season?
I think the strongest is a no-brainer. It's running back. You got Rocket Sanders, who was named first team All-SEC. I don't know if he'll have that kind of year, but
well, you hope so.
He certainly could. And so he may be the best running back in the league. But I've always liked A.J. Green. I want to see him play more. He's good. And then Rashad Dubinion. I
love that kid.
He's really good. And then Dominic Johnson is back. Finally missed all of last year. We know how good that guy is, especially in short yardage situations, talking about going for it on fourth down and on the goal line. And then you got this new freshman, a four-star freshman, who was the number 6 running back in the country, and we haven't seen him yet, but we'll see what he does. So that's 5 guys that, depth 5 deep at that position. So that's the strongest. I don't know that there's a suspect position. I might go with tight ends simply because they got a lot of young guys. They got one transfer that's a sophomore, but did play a lot last year, and he's a pass-catching tight end. And they've got one guy coming back who's more of a blocker. But they've got a lot of really young, talented guys. But there's question marks anytime guys haven't played a lot. So maybe that's it. Maybe the offensive line where you lose 2 of your starting tackles, somewhere like that. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it really is. I love A.J. Green that you mentioned that. And Dub is one of those guys that Rocket said, he was like, who do you think besides yourself is really, really talented and strong and has gotten better this offseason in that room? And he said, Rashad Dubinion.
Yeah.
He said, no, hands down, Rashad Dubinion. I'm taking him under my wing and teaching him the ropes. So I like that. That's a good one. I love it. Hot Dogger asks, another question from Hot Dogger here. Do you think the U of A will honor Ryan Mallett somehow on their jerseys or with a special dedication? I assume he means for this upcoming season.
Right. I don't think the athletic department is ready to reveal what they plan to do. No. But I did inquire about this, and without giving me any information at all about what they plan to do, I was told, yes, we will honor him. So something's coming. It's just going to be a surprise for now.
Well, absolutely. We can't spoil the surprise on Ask Mike. Come on, guys. We got to let the U of A do that surprise themselves. Mousetown wants to know, is anybody going to do anything about the state of Tennessee backing the NCAA down? First, it's NIL enforcement. Now it's a fine instead of a postseason ban for the 18 Level 1 violations by the Vols football program. This is outrageous. Mike,
I think it might have been 11, but
no, the 18 sounds a lot. That's like...
I think it was 11, but I don't know. Here's the thing. The problem here is we don't know if that played into the NCAA's decision. Here's what happened. After they announced, normally if you have that many Level 1 violations, you're going to get a postseason ban, maybe 2 years sometimes, and you're going to lose some scholarships. All they did was pay a fine. And everyone's going, what's up with that? But nobody's really commenting. And then, for some dumb reason, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee steps up and says, I threatened them. I let them know. I let the NCAA know. If you ban us, we're going to come in and pass a law, and then we're going to sue you. If this really happened, maybe he's popping off, but if it really happened, and if the NCAA really backed down, this is worse than you can possibly imagine. Let's think about what we're talking about here. Let's say Tennessee is playing Alabama in the SEC championship game. And Tennessee scores with 30 seconds left to go in the game to take the lead, but there's a holding penalty and it gets called back.
Right.
So the Attorney General gets on the phone and calls the review committee and says, hey, if you don't overturn that call, I'm going to sue you. It's the same thing. It's a rule in the game. You're guilty of holding. I'm going to enforce the rule. There was rules in place about giving. This happened before NIL. You can't give players money to get them to go to your school. They admitted they did it, and he's saying you can't enforce that rule or I'll sue you. Are you serious? Let me give you another example.
Yeah.
Will, sitting over there, is a member of Springdale Country Club. What if Will goes out there one day wearing cut-off jeans and a tank top?
He'd wear cut-off jeans and a tank top?
And it says he's going to play golf. They're not going to let him do that. No. And they have a right to say, you can't come out here dressed like that. If you do, we're kicking you out of the club. Okay, well, what's Will going to do? Get an attorney and say, hey, we're going to get a law passed that it's okay. Well, you don't need a law. It is not illegal to wear cut-off jeans and a tank top. It's just against the rules of the country club to wear them on the golf course. Well, you have the same right as the NCAA to say, member institutions, you cannot buy players.
Right.
Yet these guys, according to what he said, we'll sue you if you enforce that.
Well, that's what all the lawyers are scared about. If you talk to any sports lawyer, that's what they're scared about.
Get rid of the lawyers. Look,
get rid of the lawyers. Send them all home.
This problem can get solved if people step up. Here's what should have happened.
Okay.
If I'm Greg Sankey, I call up Tennessee and I say, hey, this thing this stooge said over here, this attorney general about, did he really do that? And if they admit it, or I'll call him, I will say, look, no, we're going to get every SEC AD, every SEC school president, we're going to stand together and we're going to say, you do this again, we'll kick you out of the league. Because we all have to follow the rules. We can't just be going around threatening to sue people every time we don't like a rule. It would be chaos. I want to give you a practical example of how wrong this is.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not against money. No. I'm not against buying things if you earn money. We had a kid in my hometown when I was growing up, and he always had the best bicycle, the best this, the best that. Nobody liked it, but my attitude was, hey, your old man has money, you have a right to do that.
Okay.
Except we get into 7th grade football. First game we're going to play, Thursday after school, second week of school. We all go in there. Our uniforms are in there. They're in our lockers. I go over there, 22. Hey, I'm number 22. I like that number. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But there was this one kid, rich kid, that I talked about. He had told his girlfriend he was going to be number 5. Watch for me in the game this afternoon. I'm number 5. The problem was he was a tight end, and the coach gave him number 87, right? Makes sense.
Okay.
He takes the 87 jersey, walks over to the guy who has the 5, takes his 5, throws him the other jersey, says, this is my jersey. Well, the manager, Paul Zielinski, goes over, you can't do that. Coach Vanoy gave you that number. He says, I don't care. So he goes and gets Coach Vanoy. Coach Vanoy goes back in there and says, hey, fold that jersey up, put it back over there the way it was, take your jersey, go back there, put it on, or you're out. Well, he doesn't stand up to him then.
Okay.
And then what happens is we play the game, and he never gets in the game, even though he's supposed to be the starting tight end. He doesn't play. So then we don't know anything that happens over the weekend. We just come in on Monday, and his locker is cleared out. Now, here's what happened. The day after the game, the junior high coach goes to the head football coach, who is his boss, tells him what happened. The head football coach goes to the junior high principal and tells him what happened. Principal tells the superintendent. Superintendent calls that kid's dad in and says, what's up here? You can't be doing that. He says, well, is there anything I can do to make a contribution that he can get this number? He goes, are you serious? He said, well, you might need some equipment for football, or hey, you might give the high school team, buy them a bus to ride in. I don't know. I got money.
Oh.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't let him have that number, he's not going to play. Well, I guess he's not going to play. This is a good example of the way it happens in athletics. You can't buy certain things, and you should not be able to buy players. And so if this really happened, it's horrible. Somebody's got to stop this. But what do we get? Everybody's passing the buck. Let's go to Congress. Let's talk to these guys. The lawyers are saying we can't. Get some. If you played football like that, you'd lose every game. Stop being weenies. Do something about this. Come on.
That was a soapbox, Mike. I like your example, though. That was a good example of.
Well, you can't buy
No.
certain things in sports. You just can't.
You can't. You gotta step up to the plate, as they say, you know?
Exactly.
Step up to the plate. Blake Taylor, 1112, says, Coach Steifel knows how to recruit, bring in coaches and transfers. I feel like this offseason is as good or even better than when she brought in KB Sides, Taylor Ellsworth, and Shanice Dells. What are your thoughts on the offseason changes, Mike?
Yeah, I think this is even bigger because they had a hitting problem last year. So what they do, went out and got maybe the best hitting coach in the country and then brought back a former player who's a great hitter.
Yeah.
So you got to assume that the hitting problems are going to get corrected. Plus, last year they had a lot of freshmen. They're not freshmen anymore. And they brought in 4 or 5 grad transfers that are all good. So I think they're going to be really good.
Yeah.
I like these changes. I think it may be the best offseason they've ever had. We'll have to wait and see, but it looks good.
Yeah, I love that they brought in DJ Gasso. He is a huge add to that coaching staff. And like you said, definitely one of the best hitting coaches in the country. And they also have Briellis, that great transfer as well. She's loading up. She's starting to get with like Eric Musselman and Sam Pittman and Dave Van Horn. She's like, all right, the transfer portal, right? We're going for the transfer portal. We're getting in these very, very talented transfers, even though last year they had one of the best freshman classes in the nation.
And so you've got them coming back, and you expect them to be better anyway, but then you've made a bunch of changes that I think will pan out.
Absolutely. We have another question about softball, kind of relating to that coaching staff changes. Hogg in Iowa says there's been some turnover in the softball team's coaching staff this offseason, but have not heard if this was because of exiting coaches, taking new opportunities, or if Coach Deifel just felt like changes were in order. Mike?
Well, she didn't get specific about what she did, so there's no way to know unless she talks about it. But I think if you understand what happened last year, it's obvious she wanted changes. This is a softball program now. The goal is to get yourself in a position where you go to the Softball World Series every year, or almost every year, to be where Arkansas is in baseball. That's their goal, to go there a lot.
Yeah.
But they haven't been there yet. And last year they were hoping to go, and they didn't get out of their own regional. Well, that's frustrating. So what do? You say, well, we had a good year, but you don't sit around and you're content about it. You go, this is not good. We had these goals, we didn't reach them. So you make these changes. And I like the approach. You can't get where she wants to go just kind of going, well, it was okay.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to make hard decisions sometimes. Staff changes, certain players leave, certain players come in. So I think she did a good job in the offseason.
Absolutely. Me and Alyssa talked last week on the show about, somebody asked about, Oklahoma and why is the Women's College World Series always in Oklahoma City. And we explained that answer, but we kind of went into well, there are so many powerhouses in softball. It's not just Oklahoma. You have UCLA and FSU, and Arkansas wants to be in that conversation. Courtney Deifel wants to be in that conversation year after year, and she's doing everything in her power to be in that conversation.
And this wasn't the question that was asked, but to me, something's got to be. You can't continue to play that every year. I know they've got it there and it's organized and you got the big stadium and all that, but that's unfair. If Oklahoma's winning it every year and it's a home game for them every year.
Well, kind of. I mean,
no, there's no kind of.
Alyssa's like
phone a friend.
Alyssa's over here like phone a friend.
Did you feel that way with the College World Series? If Nebraska was good in winning it all the time, that you now have to move it out of Omaha because Nebraska.
But they're not, and that's.
No, but what I'm asking is, if
yes.
first, would you feel the same way?
Yes, if Nebraska was winning it 3 years in a row and losing 2 games and all that time, I'd say, hey, you got to do something.
Right. I guess that makes sense. But in a defense of Alyssa, and we said last week, Oklahoma City has the perfect facilities.
Okay.
You go there.
Tell other people to get the better. You rotate it.
I guess. If there is another facility somewhere out there that's like that, I guess you could play it. But right now, tell me if I'm wrong, but that they have that facility there. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful, kind of like Omaha does. I mean, it really is the place to be for the College World Series.
They're good enough as a
microscope right now on Oklahoma softball.
Right.
That has been really good in the last decade, but it's been in Oklahoma City since 1990.
It's been in Oklahoma City
but it's
for a very
really
long
in
time.
danger of the sport itself getting something. If one team dominates to that extent,
You also have Oklahoma just had their best pitcher on staff transfer back to Nebraska.
Yeah, very true. Talent is moved
more out than
Alyssa's right. Talent is being balanced more out.
How many games have they lost in the last 3 years?
Well, no, but the rise to greatness has been in the works. It's like if all of a sudden, right, Mike, Alabama baseball got really, 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 really good, right, to the level of
and then
to the
Hoover,
level.
then
and
you'd have
it's
to
in
move
Hoover,
away from Hoover.
But then you'd have to move it from Hoover, right?
Well, you don't have to move it permanently, but you might have to rotate it a little bit.
Okay, I kind of see what you're saying. I just feel like Oklahoma City, before Oklahoma got good, right? It was the home of softball. It's the home of
Let's do it in
softball.
Farmington. They like.
Oh my goodness! You want to put it in Farmington, Arkansas?
They like softball in Farmington.
We went on a tangent there on softball, but we have one final question, and this one, Mike, I cannot wait to hear your answer on because it's about your vacation. Eddie Lynn says on Facebook, you wrote about getting to see one of your high school teammates at a reunion last week. His name is Bruiser. I'd like to hear it in your own words, and I would too.
Okay, well, his name is Bobby Dobson, but we always called him Bruiser, and we didn't really call him Bruiser because we knew he bruised up the other team, although he probably did. You don't see the other guy. Bruises come up, what, a day later? If somebody hits you hard, you're going to get a bruise within a few hours. Yeah. Well, the game's over, so we didn't see them. The reason he started being called Bruiser was because when you went over to the field house after a game Friday night, when you went over there on Monday and guys are taking their shirts off and getting dressed for practice, you'd see you could tell the offensive linemen, they had bruises all up and down the side where he'd just run into them if they didn't block and create his own blocker.
That's
great. He was his own, he just mashed you into the other guy. And so,
how big was he?
Well, he wasn't really tall. He's 5'7", 5'8", but he weighed about 200 pounds. But he's just muscled up, and he just created his own momentum.
Nice.
He was very fast, and bam, he'd move people out of there. So that's why he was Bruiser. Now, in 1963, summer of '63, in junior high, I had been a linebacker, didn't play in 7th and 8th grade, but I was a starter at linebacker on the JV team because I was quick and they felt like I wasn't good necessarily filling up the middle, but teams ran a lot around the corners and I could get out to the corner and make a tackle. So Coach Weaver, our offensive line coach for the varsity, my sophomore year, he comes up to me before two-a-days and he says, I've talked to Coach Jones, the head coach, I'm moving you to weak side guard. I'm like, what? You're making a blocker out of me? I weigh 130 pounds. What are you talking about? And he explained to me, he said, that's a speed position. And it's the key position on our offensive line because that person is trap blocking for Bruiser. And if you don't have the right guy there, it's going to cause a problem. He's about 80% of our offense. And he said, we got Leroy Atkins. He's good. But if he gets hurt, the guy behind him, Jimmy Richard Petrie, he's too heavy. He can't get there to the point of attack. And he said, I'm talking to Coach Jones, and I've told him I'm going to develop you as the season goes along. So if anything happens, put you in there. And I'm like, oh, come on. So I go through, but I do everything he tells me to do. And every day he's timing me out there on these. He put a big board down on the ground. It was a 2x6, because you got to keep your feet spread apart. And he'd time me coming down the line of scrimmage because you're coming in, you got a tackle dummy here, and you come in, you do your trap block. And it was like, 1/10 of a second is good. Now you want another 1/10 of a second off. He's just timing me. And I'm thinking, this is all stupid. But he knew what he was doing. So 2 weeks into the season, Leroy Atkins moves. His parents leave. So now Jimmy Richard Petrie, the guy he doesn't want at that position, is the starter. And he couldn't talk Coach Jones into putting me in there. So now we're losing games. Petrie can't get there in time. Bruiser's running into him. It's all kinds of problems. And so Coach Jones won't budge. So we get to the 5th game of the season. We lose. Petrie gets chewed out. He's mad. He goes out and gets drunk, passes out in his car. We had a cold snap that night. It was second week in October. He wakes up and he's sick and he goes to the hospital and he's got pneumonia and he's out for the year.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know any of this has happened. I go into the field house on Monday and Coach Weaver is smiling. He comes up, he goes, "You're starting." And I'm like, no. And he tells me what happened to Jimmy Richard. I'm like, oh no. So to make matters worse, all the other starters in the upperclassmen are doing the freeze out with me. They're like giving me the stare down. They won't talk to me. They don't want me out there. And this one guy comes up to me and he says, "You do yourself a favor if you're just faking an injury because they don't want you out there." And I'm going, oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
I got no confidence, but except for Coach Weaver. He kept telling me, "You'll be fine, you'll be fine." So we work all week long, but they brought Donnie Dubry, who was at the reunion. They brought him in. He was an offensive tackle on the strong side. He was a backup. They brought him over to learn the plays. And Coach Weaver told me, "You screw up, and Coach Jones will put him in. So go out there and do a good job. So the game starts, and right off the bat, it was Dimmitt. Dimmitt has the ball. Now I've got to stand there, and I just want to go out there and get it over with. You know, the worst part is before you play. Mm-hmm. And they've got the ball, and they're moving, and they get to midfield, and I'm thinking, go ahead and score a touchdown, because if they go much farther and punt, we're really in trouble. Well, they got to the 50, punted, ball's on the 8-yard line. Now I got to go in. And I'm convinced to this day Coach Jones did this on purpose. The first play he called was 244 trap, which meant I had to trap block, a defensive end by the name of Jim Axe, who later became a dentist in Lubbock. Jim Axe was 5'11", 185, and he was good. And he was the kind of guy, we watched game films of the opponent. I watched him turn and face a trap block guy, knock him back into the guy that was coming through with the ball.
Oh, no.
And I'm thinking, what if that happens to me? What if he knocks me into Bruiser? I mean, this is horrible. That's going through my head. So I go up to the line of scrimmage, and I thought, okay, just got to think, practice. Just pretend it's practice. Go down the board. The board's not there, but go down as fast as you can do. Well, I caught him. He didn't turn around in time. I got him right here, got my head behind him, right here. Bruiser's going to come behind that, and got him in the ribs, and I pancaked him.
Nice.
So I get up and I say, at least I didn't screw up on that play. I'm not expecting anything else. Go back to the huddle. We went from the 8-yard line to the 35. You know, that's how far Bruiser got. So we go back to the huddle, and we're standing there, and Bruiser, who never talks in the huddle, goes, hey, guys, look where we are. Look around. And they're looking around, you know, what? Well, he says, we're on the 30. I think it was the 36. We're on the 36. We were on the 8. You know why we're here instead of there? Because he threw the trap block. So shut up. And that did it. They never gave me any more trouble for the rest of the year. And he knew all that. I wasn't there to talk about that. I was there to talk about what happened next. Because when the season was over, we got our letter jackets. And if you're a football player that doesn't play basketball in my hometown, the tradition was you went to the other side of the basketball gym facing the bench. So those guys on the bench and everybody, the coaches, they can see you up there as a unity thing. Football players are all behind you, and they sit up kind of at the top. Well, I'd always sat over on the other side, but I sat on the second row. And I'm thinking my buddy, Eddie Lyon, is going to come sit there, but he doesn't show up. And I'm sitting there by myself. I'm thinking, oh, man. He later told me he didn't want to go to the game because he didn't get a letter jacket. He didn't want to sit next to me because I had one. He would be embarrassed.
Aww.
So I'm sitting there by myself, and I hear Ronald Smart, who is a smart aleck. He was an upperclassman.
And his name was Ronald Smart?
Ronald Smart.
Okay,
and
makes
he didn't
sense.
want me out there in the first place when that all happened. And he goes, hey, Irwin. And I turn around, and he's doing this. And he goes, Letterman sit together. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I get to go up there with them.
That's awesome.
So I walked up there and I sat down, and not only did I get to sit with them, they talked to me.
Aww.
They laughed at some of the stuff I said. I was a part of that group. And of course, the next year I become an upperclassman, but that moment, and that's what I told him. I said, you did something for me. I said, what was most disheartening about that whole thing was how they were giving me the freeze out.
Yeah.
These are guys I grew up with, and they were treating me like I was a jerk.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking he's going to react. He goes, that's really nice. I'm glad that happened. Now, tell me about the Razorbacks. I'm like, what? You went to Texas Tech. You were on the freshman team. He tore his knee up as a freshman and never got to play in the varsity, but he was a Texas Tech player. I mean, why is he asking me about, you know, Arkansas? Yeah. Now I'm thinking, this is like Ask Mike. He's asking me all these questions about Arkansas.
And you're like, wait a second, I'm on vacation.
Yeah, I'm like, what? So the last thing he said to me before he goes to talk to some other people is he goes, I'm going to be watching those Razorbacks this fall, so I hope he doesn't email me some more questions.
Oh, I love it. No, he needs to email you a question. We need a question from the Bruiser. That's what we need.
I don't know if he's going to do that, but that was the Bruiser story.
Was it nice to see him and
yes,
everybody?
It was, and a lot of other people too. I mean, there were these two girls when I was in high school, Sue Cooper and Janice
We know
Leboy.
this story. We know
Janice
this story.
Leboy. And they were just beautiful. I'm in the 4th grade, and I'm talking again, my buddy Eddie Lyon. He goes, you got a crush on those girls. Go ask them out. And I go, and they're a foot taller than me. They're in high school. I'm in the 4th grade. And so I never did. So I go up to Sue Cooper, and I told her that story, and she goes, Oh, and her husband passed away. She starts hugging me, and I'm thinking, if I was in the 4th grade and
You were like, yes!
Sue Cooper hugged me, I would pass out. And she's still pretty nice looking for an 80-year-old woman.
There you go.
I can tell you that.
There you go. I think that's so funny that you're like, 4th grade you was like, good job, Mike.
Yeah,
good job.
4th grade me, if more 4th grade me knew that 60, whatever years ago, I was going to get Sue Cooper to hug me, I would have passed out.
There you go.
So,
There you go.
It was great.
That's some of the best stories on the show, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing them. We'll answer more of your questions next Monday.